Namaste, we are live.
So, namaste. Kaustubh beat me to that one. Anyway, good evening and welcome to another session with my good friend Kaustubh Desikachar. So, those of you who are already here, just do drop in a line or a comment as soon as you come in, so that we know you're here, and then we can, also know that you hear us well, etc. Feel free to let us know if you have any disturbance. So before I introduce Kaustubh, just give me a few seconds for those of you who don't know me to just say a few words about myself. My name is Shailaja Menon, and I have been in the field of yoga for over 20 years now. And the yoga practice has truly shaped my life. Right, so I grew up in Coimbatore, and my yoga practice as well began in Coimbatore, both as a teacher as well as, a student first and then a teacher. And then the last 18 years, I continued in Malaysia with my teacher, Manoj Kaimal. Along the way, I became an author with my book Yoga Shakti, published in 2018. And I also became a speaker. I run a yoga studio here, Mat and Beyond Yoga Studio, where I teach classes regularly in the morning as well as the evenings. And all these are simply different avenues for me to express my love for yoga. And I began these conversations during the lockdown to share authentic information of yoga for those who seek a broader understanding of the profound practice, so that it can be understood and practiced as so much more than just an exercise or a class that you do once a week, right? Which is what it has sadly been reduced to in a lot of places. So this is my small attempt to offer something authentic to keep that beautiful flame of yoga burning bright. And Kaustubh, as most of you know, is a renowned yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and author, continuing the classical yoga tradition of his eminent grandfather T. Krishnamacharya and father T.K.V. Desikachar. T. Krishnamacharya is considered the father of modern yoga, as the revival of modern day yoga is to a large extent attributed to him and his legendary students, who include Guruji B.K.S. Iyengar, Guruji Patabi Joyce, and Kaustubh's own father, Guruji Desikachar. So, just nice to see so many of you here. Thank you so much for your hellos, and I'll just keep continuing with my introduction. Kaustubh began studying yoga when he was 9 years old under his father, and began teaching by the time he was 13. He has a dual master's degree from the renowned Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences, and has a doctorate from the University of Madras. Kaustubh continues to conduct teacher training and therapist training programs around the globe, traveling 8 months of the year to distant parts such as Europe, China, as well as other parts of the globe. He has authored several books too, to name a few: To Serve with Love, a tribute to T.K.V. Desikachar, The Yoga of the Yogi, The Legacy of T. Krishnamacharya, and his most recent book, which was released on International Yoga Day, 21st June this year, which is Truth Unclouded, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. His objectives include the sharing of authentic teachings of yoga to the modern era, and building bridges between different healing modalities to promote physical, emotional, social, and spiritual health. So, Kaustubh and I have actually been having several conversations over this last few months, and which includes a conversation on chakras, as well as another very meaningful interview, a two-part session on the history and origin of yoga. So for those of you who are interested, all these talks are available on our Facebooks as well as YouTube channels, both Kaustubh's and mine. Yeah, so you can always go back and refer to them there. So I'm going to allow Kaustubh to begin with a chat. So welcome, Kaustubh. As always, a wonderful pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Namaste. So, namaste, friends, and thank you for your introduction. Let us begin with a chant. Prāṇāyāma sammanāmeshodhyantam jyotiraham viraja vipāpma bho bhūyāsaga svāha. Om Vāṅ-manas-chakṣuśrotra-jikvā-ghṛāna-reto buddhyā-koti sankalpā-me środhyantān jyotiraham virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Om Shirah Pāni-Pāda-Pārshva-Prishṭho-Dara-Jangha-Shishnopastha Vāyavo-me Shodhyantān Jyotiraham Virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Tvakcharmamagam sarudhiramedhosthimajjame shodhyantan jyotiraham virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Om Shabdasparsha-rūpa-rasa-gandhā-me shodhyantān jyotiraham virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Om Prathavyap-tejo vāyurākāśā-me shodhyantān jyotiraham virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Om Annamaya Prāṇamaya Manomaya Vijñānamaya Anandamaya me shodhyantān jyotiraham virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Om Vividyaye svāha. Om Kashotkāya svāha. Om Uttishṭha purusha hare lohita pingalakshi dehi dehi dadāpayitā-me shodhyantān jyotiraham virajā-vipāpmā bhūyāsaga svāha. Oga svāha. Namaste, my dear friends.
So before we begin this conversation, I just want to again welcome so many of you here who have been supporting us and really coming on to all our conversations. I can't take all your names, but lovely to see so many of you here. Some of my students here, Chandran, my good friend Mini, my aunt Chandrika, who's there. And then so many others, Dr. Meena, who's become quite regular now. So just really welcome. Most of you here are yoga practitioners, yoga teachers yourself. And I'd really like these conversations to not just be, my conversation, but all your conversations as well. So do feel free to make this a really interactive session, right? Just send in your questions, send in your comments. And I'm sure you have many doubts as well and questions that you want to ask Kaustubh on this topic. So, just really feel free to ask these questions. Yeah, we'll try to take as many of them as possible. So, let's begin for the topic of the interview, which is the magic of prana. And this actually came about because in one of the recent interviews that Kaustubh was talking to someone, and he was asked about, giving one magic, like a solution, right, in these COVID-19 times, like what could yoga offer? And I heard him say pranayama. And I was very intrigued by that answer, and the result is this conversation here today. So for most of us, pranayama is just like one part of the art practice, and we don't really give so much attention to it, or it's something that we kind of sit through, and not really because we don't understand how profound this whole practice is. So I'm really hoping that through this conversation we will really learn to value the practice a lot more and look forward to the practice. Yeah. So why is prana the magic? Because the whole topic was like the magic of prana. So why is prana the magic, especially in these COVID times?
I don't think that prana is the magic only during the COVID times. Prana is magic, full stop. And the reason I say that is because of what the prana can do. The prana is deriving from its Sanskrit origins, prakarshena anati gachati tasmat pranaha. Prana is that which brings life and that which brings transformation, and that is why it is called prana. Just think about it. Prana is that magical tool that is a gift from the divine, that is somehow able to bring life to something that is inanimate, and not just bring life but also bring about a profound transformation to its fruition. Now just think about it. Matter is just matter, it's dead matter. But the moment prana is entering that matter undergoes a profound recognition of its own potential, and it is having its power to evolve into that potential. And that is why it is called magic, because it is able to bring forth the potential that is inherently hidden in matter, and without prana that will not be possible. So every sentient being, whether it's a human being or an animal or a plant or any other single cellular or multicellular organism that is alive, it is alive because of prana, and it is able to manifest into its potential, into its full self, only because of prana. Without prana, nothing is going to happen. And that is why prana is considered the most magical concept in the universe, and it is the main focus of all yogic tools. And not only in yoga, but even in all other Asian philosophical approaches, whether you take Chinese medicine, acupuncture, or Tai Chi, Zen meditation, etc., the focus is always on the prana. Maybe the words are different. The only systems that don't focus on prana are the modern systems of medicine, because they deny the existence of prana, and that is why they are so flawed and they are not able to do the magic. Whereas all the systems that are embracing the concept of prana, they're able to do remarkable things and facilitate us in our personal and spiritual transformation, and also in the domain of health and healing, because prana is that also which heals. If the pranas are balanced in the body, healing will automatically happen. And disease itself is a disturbance of prana. It's not to be understood only at a physiological, what you call, system, the way the modern system of medicine looks at it. Whereas in the traditional systems, they are always talking about it as an imbalance of prana. And that's why I chanted this chant today. It's a chant that is called Arogya Mantra. It's a mantra for health. It's a mantra for health, and it is starting saying that we are asking the pranas to be balanced. After that, many other systems, but first is the 5 main pranas to be balanced. Prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana, me shuddhyantam, jyotiraham, virajavipatma, bhuya sadhu swaha. That's the first mantra where we are asking the pranas to balance. That's why I say this is a magic.
Very beautifully said, Kaustubh. I liked several points that you made, especially that prana is what brings life and elements matter, and not just that, but also that is what helps us to realize our potential, which I think is so beautiful, and helps the transformation, personal and spiritual transformation. So many beautiful points to keep in mind with regards to prana, and thank you so much for that insight. So some very interesting comments as well. So there's I think that's your student Maria. Please excuse me if I don't get your names right. So she says namaste to Shailaja and Kaustubh from Colombia, and it's 6:30 a.m. there, so it's a great way to start the day. So I mean, thank you so much for joining us here, and I really hope that you have a great session and go away with a lot more insight. Do feel free to comment, ask questions. And there's Dr. Meena there who says Kaustubh is an amazing person, admire his sense of humor and his wonderful chanting. So hopefully we'll get to see glimpses of that as the interview progresses. So the second question I had is, can we talk about the profound connection between the breath and the mind, right? So there's a two-part question. One is breath and mind, and one is breath as well as chakras and energy.
So which one you want me to answer?
The first one, breath and mind first.
Okay. Now, again, there is so much we can talk about this, only the breath and the mind, because the way yoga understands the mind is remarkable, and it is not just as a brain function. Now, I will just like to talk about two things. The first thing is that there's a very profound effect or connection between the state of our mind and the breathing. The more calm the breathing is, the more quieter the mind will be, and the more disturbed the breathing is, the more disturbed the mind will be, and vice versa. And the reverse as well. The more agitated you are, the breath will be agitated, and the more relaxed you are, the breath will be relaxed, and the opposite. And that's why in yoga techniques, what we are saying is we are extending the breath to make it more calm, not because we want the breath to be calm, but we want the mind to be more calm. So that's one aspect of it. However, the great genius of our Yoga Shastra, and especially of Patanjali, is that how Patanjali has understood what is called as the mind. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it because it will take the whole session, but Patanjali is talking about at least 3 domains of the mind. What is called Chitta Vrittis is one of them, Chitta Bhumi is another, and Chitta Bheda is completely another domain. So there are 3 aspects of the mind that he's talking. Bhumi means levels, Vrittis means activities, and Bheda means the type of minds that we have. So that's the last that I want to talk about, the types of mind, Chitta Bheda. Now in Yoga Shastra, if you look at Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, at various different levels, he is using various terminology for the mind. One place he uses the word manas, one place he uses the word asmita, one place he talks about it as buddhi, one place as chitta, one place as pratyaya, one place as sattva. He uses these terms in different places based on the context and based on what is relevant at that moment. Now, when you look at these 6, we can divide them into 2 parts, one called the external minds and one called the internal minds. Among the external minds, the word manas is the most external mind, that which is close to the senses. That mind is what is connected to the senses, what is telling the sense what to look at and what not to look at. The sensory mind. More closer than that is what is called the asmita mind. More deeper than that is what is called the asmita mind, that is the identification mind. So that mind is identifying this I like, this I don't like, this is red, this is blue. That mind that is able to identify. The third of the external mind is called the buddhi, the analytical mind, or the mind that processes information, analyzes, etc. All these three are called the external minds, and this is where we are always operating in. Whereas there is also the deeper minds, for example, the chitta, the mind that is able to make a connection without judgment, just a connection. Make and sustain a connection, that is the chitta mind. That is where yoga starts. That's why Patanjali is defining yoga as chitta vritti nirodha, not mano vritti nirodha or buddhi vritti nirodha or asmita vritti nirodha. He starts with chitta vritti nirodha because only the deeper mind can make that connection. We can call this chitta as the heart mind. Deeper than that is what is called the pratyaya type of mind, that fluid mind that is existing in the state of dream or in the state of meditation, etc. And that is where Patanjali uses the word pratyaya to define meditation. Tatra pratyaya ekatanata dhyanam. So dhyanam and samadhi are possible with the pratyaya mind, fluid mind. Tadeva arthamatra nirbhasam swarupa shunyamiva samadhi. That is the same pratyaya mind is talked about in this context. Most deep mind is called sattva mind, which is the silent mind. That is what is able to achieve kaivalyam. Sattva purushayoho shuddhi samye kaivalyam. So if you analyze the Yoga Sutra, different terminology is used for the different kind of mind because only that kind of mind can do that kind of activity. The manas mind cannot be in a yoga, the buddhi mind cannot be in a yoga, the asmita mind cannot be in yoga. Yoga starts with the chitta, extends to pratyaya, finally finishes at sattva mind. Now what's this connection to do with prana? It's very simple. The external minds consume more prana. The more subtler, deeper minds consume less prana. That's why the moment we start doing more and more pranayama, prana becomes more efficient, the more internal minds get activated. Whereas if the prana is not efficient, only the external minds are activated. That's why unless we do pranayama, we are not going to be able to be in a state of yoga. So yoga without pranayama, the state of dharana, dhyanam, samadhi are not possible without pranayama. That is why in all the classical texts, pranayama has been presented as a prerequisite for dharana, dhyanam and samadhi, because unless the prana is made more efficient, these minds that are able to be in the states of yoga like dharana, dhyanam and samadhi are not going to be possible. It's only a fantasy. The external mind cannot be in the state of yoga. It can be in a raga and roga, but not yoga. That is why we need the prana to become more and more efficient. I hope this clarifies, and this is where Patanjali is remarkable in talking about the different kinds of mind.
That was really fascinating, Kaustubh, on the segregation of the different kinds of minds, the external minds, internal minds, and actually that was also my next question. I know
it's not my categorization. It's what Patanjali has done. I am just repeating what
I know, but
I don't want to take credit for this differentiation. It's not
I know, but you have explained it very beautifully in this conversation. And this is also actually part of my next question, which is what I wanted to say. I know we haven't completed the earlier one, but my next question was really, on why, in the numbering of the Ashtanga Yoga, why Pratyahara was, before Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, etc. So you kind of answered that with your, saying that Pranayama was so necessary for those higher states of mind to evolve. So that question is gone, but we still have the other part of this question about pranayama with the chakras and energy and all that.
So, yeah. So this is also again a long topic, because when we are evolving from the subtle to the gross, that is how we are evolving when we are conceived. And actually, what is conception? Now, there are some expert doctors who are also listening to this conversation. My dear friend, Dr. Balaji is there. He is listening to the conversation. Talaiva. But the doctors are saying, the medical doctors are saying that conception is when the sperm and the egg meet and form a single cellular fetus or embryo. Vedic Shastras do not talk about like this. Vedic Shastras talk about conception as when the divine is reciting a mantra to establish prana in the matter. That is what is called prana pratishtha. So in Chandogya Upanishad, it's talked about that when we are conceived is when the divine is establishing the jivatma in the prakriti by reciting the pranava mantra. So we begin with an om that the divine has recited, and matter is not, the sperm and the egg have not yet met, but the matter has been implanted with the consciousness, and that is where the sperm and the egg start to move towards each other and meet. So this is coming because of prana that the divine is offering to us. And then there is the different chakras that are evolving. There is a mantra in the Upanishad, Atha Purusho Havai Narayano Akamayata Prajasrajayeti Narayanat Prano Jayate Manaha Sarva Indriyani Cha Kham Vayur Jyotirabha Prithvi Vishwasya Dharini. So there's a presentation about that, which actually, if you understand very closely, it's talking about the evolution of the 7 chakras in our body, which are essentially some kind of energy centers that are given some functions that the physiological, psychological structures of the body associated with that to function. See, if my heart is not only responsible for pumping blood, the heart is also responsible for emotions such as grief, such as loss, sadness, such as love, such as connection, etc. The Manipuraka chakra is not just responsible for digestion, but it's also responsible for things like anger, things like the sense of identity and things like that. So every one of the chakras are having some kind of function to allow our body to work. Now these functions, they can only function when there is somehow fuel. That fuel is prana and nothing else. And even every system in our body is only designed to produce prana. We take food, it's converted to energy. You breathe in, breathe out, it's converted to energy. Every system is essentially either a producer of prana or a carrier of prana. The blood circulation system carries prana. The elimination system removes the waste that are obstacles to the flow of prana. So every system in our body is only designed for allowing the prana to function optimally. If we disturb that, we are creating a traffic jam of prana or a roadblock of prana, then comes disease. So essentially, all the chakras are essentially energy centers that are associated with physiological, psycho-spiritual functions of the body and nothing else. They are very, very vital to understand in the context of prana. That's why the chakras are called energy centers. They are not called centers of the body or locations of the body. They are called energy centers of the body. And that is why it's very, very important to understand in this context. And all the asanas, all the pranayamas, etc., are somehow connected to this. Why Padmasana is called Padmasana? The Padmasana does not ever look like a lotus. That's all nonsense. If people are saying that, that means they have good imagination and they don't know the Yoga Shastra. Padma, in the language of Sanskrit, Padma is a synonym for chakra, because if you look at every chakra, it's talked about in the form of a lotus. That's why if you look at the chakra designs, they're all lotuses of different petals, number of petals. So Padma is actually the synonym for chakra. So Padmasana is where we are moving the prana through the chakras. It's not about crossing the legs. It's about moving the pranas through the chakras, because in that position the spine is aligned and your breathing comes back to breathing consciously and deliberately. So every technology of yoga is based on the chakra and the prana model. Why we do some asanas? There are some modern people who say if you do this asana, this muscle will work, and you do that asana, that muscle will work. That's just absolute nonsense. The ancient yogis never looked at that way. All yoga practices were essentially divided into 3 categories of practices. What is called Langana, Samana and Brahmana. Langana type practices affected or influenced the lower chakras. Swadhisthana and Mooladhara were affected by the Langana type of practices. And I use the word practice because it includes asana, pranayama, mantra, meditation, everything. The Samana type practices are influencing the Manipuraka chakra and to some degree the Anahata chakra. The Brahmana type practices are from the Anahata chakra and above. So that's why we are doing some asanas which are, let's say, called back arch in English, but in Sanskrit in traditional time it was called Purvatana, that was meant to affect the upper chakras. The pranayama called Ujjayi is called Ujjayi because, not because it's Victoria's Secrets. That's what some people say. It actually means it masters the upper part of the body. Urdhvam Jayati iti Ujjayi, which connects to the upper chakras of the body. Certain mudras and bandhas are influencing the lower chakras. Certain mudras and bandhas influence the upper chakras. Certain mantras influence the lower chakras. Certain mantras influence the upper chakras. So whatever be the tool of yoga, it comes back to prana and the chakras. They are not based on the musculoskeletal system of the body. People who are talking about yoga as a musculoskeletal system of the body, especially Indians, should be ashamed, because that is not how the traditional yogis thought about it. That is absolutely a flawed approach to understand yoga. The traditional yogis, they didn't care about musculoskeletal system like the modern science is doing. If we understand asanas through that, then we are trying to understand yoga through a material science, not a spiritual science. And that is the big difference.
Well said, Kaustubh. So the next question is that can we dissect the different elements of pranayama? Like we have the inhalation, we have the exhalation, and then its relationship to the different nadis, the ida, the pingala, and sun, moon.
Again, you are asking a very, very big question with a very short time. Patanjali dissects the entire process of pranayama in one sutra, 250, second chapter 50. Bhahya abhyantara stambha vrittihi desha kala sankhyavihi paridrishtaha dirgha sukshmaha. So you take any process, it has 3 parts. There is an input, there is a process, there is an output. Now, in pranayama, the input is Bhakya vritti, Abhyantara vritti, Stambha vritti. The exhalation, the inhalation, and the retention of breath, whether it is after exhalation or after inhalation, it is just called retention of breath. So they are the input. That input you are putting through the process called Desha, Kala, Sankhya. Desha means place. Inhale left nostril, exhale right nostril. Inhale through the tongue, exhale through alternate nostril. different place. Kumbhaka, the retention of breath, do Jalandhara Bandha, one place, Uddiyana Bandha, another place, Moola Bandha, yet another place. So that is called Desha. Then Kala, the duration, 5 seconds inhale, 10 seconds exhale, 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds hold, 10 seconds exhale, etc. The different duration of the components, each component of breathing, whether it's the exhale, inhale, or retention, that is coming under what is called Kala, and this is where mantra comes in as well. Because please understand, in the traditional time of the yogis, again, they never measured in terms of 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, because they did not have a clock. The clock system is not our traditional system. So they said duration will be measured by mantra. I'm talking about very old yogis. At that time, mantras were allowed for all sections of society. It's only later, after Manu, that mantras were eliminated from certain sections of society. But before Manu, mantras were totally for everybody. So the duration was measured with mantra, that is what is called Kala. Then Sankhya, how the number of times we have to repeat, how many times we have to repeat, should I do it 10 times, should I do it 12 times, should I do it 24 times, etc. The number of repetition, and very often the number was connected to the duration of the mantra. The number of syllables of mantras would dictate the number of times we would repeat it. And normally in India there are two traditions. One is called the Shaiva tradition. They would always supposed to repeat the mantra in multiples of 6, because their mantra, the most important mantra, the Shiva Moola mantra, is called the Shadakshari mantra, the mantra of 6 vowels. Whereas the Vaishnava tradition, they do the repetition based on the Vaishnava Moola mantra, that is called the Ashtakshari mantra, that is number of syllables is 8. So these three parameters, Desha, Kala, Sankhya, would influence the Bhakya Vritti, Abhyantara Vritti, Stambha Vrittis in such a way so that the resulting breath should always be Dirgha and Sukshma. The resulting inhale, the resulting exhale, the resulting hold should always be long and smooth. The exhale should become longer and smoother. The inhale should become longer and smoother. The retention should become longer and smoother. Then we are in the right direction of pranayama. Like I said, the more efficient the prana, the more deeper minds get activated. And that is where all the nadis and chakras and all that come, because nadi is a location. The Ida nadi terminates in the left nostril, the Pingala nadi terminates in the right nostril. The chakras, you have the bandhas that are influencing the different chakras, etc. So all these are the philosophical frameworks with which we have to understand pranayama, and we don't in the modern era, because these things are not really studied by most people, including many Indian teachers. They don't have this awareness of this knowledge, and that is why I hope that this will change.
So thank you so much for that. We have a question here from Dr. Balaji. He says, according to you, what is nadi? Like, is it artery, vein, nerve, lymphatics? And how scientifically, quote, what is nadi?
Dr. Balaji is asking a very doctor-like question. Nadi is it's an umbrella term, because nadi is a term that is used in Ayurveda to also represent the vein or the artery that carries blood. But in the context of prana, nadi is also the subtle channel that carries prana. Now the problem is, blood is also one of the carriers of prana. The nerves are also one of the carriers of prana, as we understand from modern science. But prana is also moving through non-physical channels, and that is why sometimes the terminology in the yoga and Ayurvedic text is what is called sira. Sira. Sukshman Kantasta Nalika Dwara Saswana Madra. There is a sira in the throat through which we have to breathe, that is called Ujjayi. So it's including all this, but it's also something that is more. And sometimes they are controlled by the mind. Where the mind goes, there the prana goes. You direct the mind somewhere, the prana will go there. There may not be what is called your artery or vein there, so called, but it still will go. Maybe a very small thing will be there. But prana is not only material, but also something that is more than matter. More than matter. It also, in certain moments, exists around the body, which is a sign that we are disturbed in the prana. When we can internalize the body, the prana inside the body, that is when we are more stable. Sometimes that is what you will feel when you move close to a person, or when you're close to a person and you're very sensitive, you feel that their energy is not good. You don't know how to explain, because the prana from them is dissipating outside. It's dissipating outside, and you can feel it if you are sensitive. But is there an artery? Is there a vein? Is there a lymph node outside the body? No. But there is prana. That is a sira, a non-material structure that brings the prana out.
So I hope Dr. Balaji is happy with this explanation. And again, this is something that I've heard you say in one of your classes, Kaustubh, about retention, which I found really fascinating. That you said that ancient sages actually practiced pranayama to ultimately increase their capacity to retain. And pranayama was to retain, for retention. So I just want to talk about the importance of retention. Why is retention so important? Or what is its place in the whole practice?
It's very simple, and it's humanly not possible to continuously extend the breath beyond a certain duration. Now, if you can breathe in or out for, let's say, about 10 seconds inhale, 10 seconds exhale, you think that's long. But in the ancient time, the people's highest level was about 36 seconds inhale, 36 seconds exhale. That was considered the highest level. Now you can't breathe in for 72 seconds or 144 seconds with a very subtle quality as well. So that's where the retentions were coming, because the retention of breath, it vitalized the function of the breath that it's preceding. So if you did retention after exhale, that would vitalize the function of exhale. Say, for example, elimination is a function of exhale. The retention after exhale would vitalize it, so it will eliminate completely or even more. Inhalation is called the manifesting breath. So retention after inhale would manifest the potential. So that is where the retention of breath is coming, where you would allow the function of the breathing component to be vitalized. Because you can't keep extending the inhale and exhale, because our body's capacity for the extension is limited. However, we have to be very careful with retention of breath, because it can also wake up some of our hidden emotional structures like traumatic memories or subliminal impressions that are negative, sometimes positive, sometimes etc. And that is why in the beginning, the exhalation and the retention after exhalation is focused on, so that the toxic impressions, the toxic things would be eliminated before later bringing in the retention after inhalation. And that is very, very important. So you can't just play with retention of inhalation or retention of exhalation. however you want. You have to be very, very careful.
So thank you for that. This is from my cousin Mini, who lives in Singapore, Manju Nair. So she's asking that is it correct that the body needs to be prepared through asanas before starting pranayama? And if yes, how can we assess if our body is ready for its practice?
See, this relates with the previous question or previous comment you made about the order of the Ashtanga Yoga. Now, asana is a basis for pranayama because you are doing pranayama in a position. In a position because you're going to stay in that position for a reasonable amount of time to do the breathing practices. So that's why Patanjali is saying that asana is a foundation for pranayama. But it doesn't mean that you have to master all the 400, 500, 600 asanas before you are coming into the practice of asana. What Patanjali is saying is essentially simple. Tasmin sati means sati asana jaye sthira sukhe. When you have achieved sthiram and sukham in an asana, let's say for example you are comfortable and stable in a simple seated position, that is enough for you to do pranayama. You don't have to stand on your head to do pranayama. You don't have to do all the difficult asanas to do pranayama. However, as you progress, even the asana becomes a pranayama because what were you doing in an asana? In the old days, the asanas were all done static, not like today. Today, people are jumping like monkeys from one asana to the other. Basically, that's what monkeys do, jump from one tree to the other. The same way modern yogis are jumping from one asana to the other. In the ancient time, asana was always static. That's why it's called asana, because that comes from the root asa bhuvi, to sit, asa upaveshane. So you have to stay there, whatever is the asana. What were you doing staying in that asana? You were regulating the breath. Prayatna. Prayatna is another word for pranayatna. Do the regulation of breath in the practice of asana. Sthira sukham. Sthira bhava represents inhalation. Sukha bhava represents exhalation. So sthira sukham asana means inhale and exhale in asana. Asana was not a physical position. Asana was ultimately a pranayama. If you have to bring asana to its potential, what do you have to do? You have to do pranayama in the asana. As I told you before, in the very beginning, prana is that magic that brings the potential of something out. And that is why, even in an asana, you have to include pranayama so that its potential is brought out. Without prana, without breath regulation in asana, it is not an asana, it is a position. It's not yoga, it's just a position.
So I guess that answers the Mini's question. And Kaustubh, you could be slightly kinder to different kinds of yoga practices.
I could be what?
Slightly kinder.
I am very kind person. I am very kind person. And I am very loyal to Patanjali and his teaching. And more, I don't want to be kind to somebody who is doing cultural appropriation or misappropriation. That's not necessary to be kind. You have to call out for what it is. Because if we really have to be in the field of yoga, that is what we have to do.
So you have Dr. Meena supporting you as well. She says, I think I've heard Dr. Ananda use this term as well, Jada Yoga. So I think modern yoga is something that, with, I guess, focus only on the movement and with no value to the breathing practices in it. So
yoga.
Huh?
Modern yoga is not yoga.
Okay, so all you yoga teachers out there, a good time to reflect on our yoga practice. And
I don't blame the modern yoga teachers because they have not been taught properly and they have been taught by non-traditional teachers. So if any of the students or practitioners who are sincere, they will know that they need to go back to traditional schools of yoga, and we are very fortunate that there are still some schools which are having this traditional background, and I'm very sure that they can guide practitioners around the world. I think it's a time for people to wake up to real yoga. It's a very important moment. It's like a renaissance moment. We have to wake up. Otherwise, we will kill the yoga like we are killing the world. There's not only a yoga, there's not only a climate crisis, there is also yoga crisis, because yoga is now devoid of yoga.
Yes, so these conversations are also to wake people up to that. So I guess listening to Kaustubh is also a wake-up call to kind of go back to traditional practices. And what are the simple pranayama like that kids, older people, all of them could safely, because is all pranayama suitable for everybody?
I think it's all pranayama is suitable for everybody as long as you are appropriately practicing the desha, kala, and sankhya. Now, certain techniques like Kapalabhati and Bhastrika are not considered as pranayama by many traditional yoga teachers, because the consequence of the breath is not dirgha and sukshma. So Kapalabhati and Bhastrika aside, if you think about practices like Ujjayi Pranayama, Surya Vedana Pranayama, Nadishodhana Pranayama, etc., everybody can practice within their limitation with a limited number of breaths to start with, and take guidance from a competent teacher so that they can be guided appropriately. Like I said, pranayama can wake up things. So you need to have a teacher who will support you, who will guide you. And also, it is also very important to know sometimes certain contraindications of some pranayama, so that if you are having some problems like that, then to avoid that and choose something else. But generally, pranayama can be practiced by anybody. In traditional India, in Indian times, when the young person was initiated into the Yajnopavita, the sacred thread, at the age of about 7 or 8, the first Samantraka Pranayama was taught with Gayatri Mantra. Nadi Shodhana Pranayama was taught at the age of 7 or 8. So children can do pranayama, of course.
And some benefits, can you just talk about some of the most popular practices, right? Nadi Shodhana, Brahmari, all of it, like just to encourage people to, focus on the practice.
See, it's difficult because each of these pranayama will have different benefits, like Nadi Shodhana's benefits are different from Ujjayi's benefits, etc. But globally, if you look, there are a few benefits that you can not deny in the practice of pranayama. First and foremost, your health will improve. And even if you look at it from a modern medical perspective, there are a couple of doctors here who will probably agree with me, maybe they will disagree. The breathing mechanism is very strongly connected to the immune system. So the more you breathe consciously, the more vitalized the immune system will become. So you will definitely become healthier. You don't need to do many asanas to become healthier. If you start practicing conscious regulation of breath, already your immune system will improve and you will definitely become healthier. The second benefit is it will definitely improve focus, because pranayama is very strongly connected with the mind structure. And this is one of the reasons why I feel it's very important for young children also to practice, especially those in the teenage, because there's a lot of pressure on the teenagers to study and get more marks and this and that. And I've seen this with my own daughter and her classmates and many children of my friends and students. And today there is much more distraction, because many distractions are available in the form of the digital media that never existed in my time when I was a teenager. I mean, when I was my daughter's age, there was only 2 channels in the TV. One was called DD1, the national one, and one was the DD2. And we had one movie on Saturday that was a Hindi movie, one movie on Sunday that was a Tamil movie. Friday we used to have something called Olium Olium, which was musical songs. And basically at all other times you switch on the TV, you have one kind of grid kind of network with different colors, nothing was on. As today, there's 400 channels, 500 channels on the TV, you have the phone, you have this, you have that. So the distractions are enormous today. And I think that's why the teenagers would benefit from some conscious regulation of breath. And that's why it will also reduce anxiety levels, stress levels, etc. Because the breathing, the more calmer and the more longer the breathing is, the body will also become more and more calmer as well. So these are 2 important things that I would say are very quickly beneficial for people, but also in the long term, when we do the pranayama, we will live longer. Of course, if we don't get into an accident or coronavirus, for example, but generally speaking, if the breath is longer, we will live longer because the system will be more and more relaxed, more and more healthier. So these are 3 benefits that I would say, because Patanjali also talks about this. He says that pranayama makes our mind more fit for dharana, which is focus. We will definitely live longer, we'll be much more healthier, immune system will also become better. So these are some simple overall benefits of pranayama that we can talk about in terms of any of the traditional, conventional pranayamas.
So here's another doctor for you. Uncle Ignatius is a doctor from London. So he says he understands that pranayama helps vital capacity of the lungs, sleep mindfulness, reduces stress, brings down blood pressure. Can you elaborate a bit, please?
I thought I just did.
Yeah, these exact things.
Yeah, because the system will become more and more relaxed. It will trigger in our body what is called the relaxation response, and so you will sleep better, you will digest food better, because you will also digest food better when you are relaxed more than when you are stressed. And that's why we also have a lot of metabolic problems now, because we are so stressed. It's not only the bad food, but also because we are so stressed, our metabolism is not functioning well. So all this will change if we start practicing conscious breath regulation, either as pranayama or in asana, one way or the other. I don't want
So we have
not against the modern yoga. What I would like to tell all the modern people who are jumping from one asana to the other is to just jump with the breathing slowly. Try to move slowly with the breath, coordinated with the breathing. You will see remarkable change even in your practice. I'm not asking them to stop it, I'm asking them to include it with the breathing.
Okay. So in line with what we were talking about, kids starting pranayama, you have Erica here who says she started pranayama as a child for her asthma. So I hope it's really helped. And she also adds that yoga is not about being modern, however, it's perpetually current and meaningful. So thank you all for all your comments and your questions. We're coming to the end of the session. So if you do have any question, now is the time to ask. Otherwise, we're going to be winding up the session. Many benefits to the practice, right? As Kaustubh said, basically it calms down your system, rests your system, improves digestion, improves sleep, like Uncle was talking about as well, reduces stress, anxiety levels. And it's good for everybody of all ages. You can start from as young as 7. And I mean, there are some contraindications. So it's good to be, connected to a teacher, I guess, to ask your doubts and everything, and not just, read a book and practice. So, but it is definitely something that can be practiced. I think, was it your father or grandfather or somebody who said that as long as you can breathe, right, you can practice yoga. So there is no age bar. Somehow we associate yoga only with asana, right? So it's not just that.
My grandfather was saying that there is no There's no limitation to do the yoga as long as you're able to breathe. And whether it's young person or old person or anybody like that. And I have seen my grandfather and even my father practice pranayama till very, very long, very old in their life. And I've also seen through some photographs that my dear friend Ananda from Pondicherry is posting about his father doing pranayama on the beach in Pondicherry with many of his students. And I think that's also very remarkable to see that people of all ages can do pranayama, and through that, they can do yoga.
Yes, and they can improve their state of health. Like Kaustubh says, it's not necessary only to do asanas, to improve our energy levels and the state of our health. Pranayama practice is a great place to start in case, you at this point, you have some health issues and you're not able to get started on asana practice. So I have Erica saying something here. Under the current situation with global pandemic and other stresses, do you have a particular pranayama practice that you would advise?
I think the most simple one to start with for everybody would be the Ujjayi Pranayama, because Ujjayi also is a pranayama that is mastering the upper chakras, which is connected with the immune system. And so the more stronger we make our immune system, the better it is to face this kind of pandemic, because then we will be stronger. So Ujjayi would be a good start.
Okay. And Maria says, teacher, please share why is it important to do the practice of pranayama with a teacher and not from a book?
Because a book cannot tell you what you are doing wrong. A book cannot be a support for you when your emotions or disturbing emotions or feelings comes out. A book cannot lead you step by step because it doesn't observe how your breathing is. It cannot tell you which pranayama is beneficial for you, which pranayama is a contraindication for you. So there is no reason why we should learn pranayama only through a book. In traditional times, there was no books. And even today, a book can be a good guide to learn some things, but to practice long term, there has to be guidance from a teacher where there is feedback and response. A book nor a computer, nor any media can do that. Only a sentient being on the other side is able to do this.
I like the way you said that, sentient being. Let's be clear about that. I also think, you were just talking earlier also that you said it's such a powerful practice to awaken energies, and sometimes, right, emotional traumas, all that comes up as well. And we need to be able to, discuss that with someone, get some guidance, right, back off somewhere, increase somewhere, right, to fine tune our practice.
That itself is a big topic of discussion. The role of a yoga teacher. This is one of the big problems in modern time, because modern time people think a yoga teacher's responsibility is to teach some asanas or positions and that's it. The role of a yoga teacher is so much more larger than that. So much more larger than that.
So I have one more question here. That's a topic for another day, Kaustubh. And is there any particular mantra that can be referred to for repetition during practice of pranayama? This is my cousin Prakash from Chennai.
I think the simplest mantra can be the Pranava mantra, that is Om, because it's very easy for everybody to practice that. And it's a universal mantra as well. So if you are not objecting to that you can start with that practice. Whereas if you have some objection to it because of some religious or some other cultural reasons, then you may engage with a discussion with your priest or somebody who you consider as your spiritual advisor to choose that appropriate mantra for you.
Okay. So I think we're going to wind up the session now. It's already past an hour. So Kaustubh's going to chant a beautiful closing mantra for us. And then thank you all. Yes, all your chanting is beautiful, Kaustubh. So I'm taking the liberty to say that it's going to be a beautiful chanting session. So thank you all again for being here and supporting these conversations. And I truly hope you have, gained a greater understanding of the practice.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Namaste.
Again, and thank you all.